Some perspective now from Parag Khanna, an author and former senior advisor with the US Department of Defense. Really good to see you, Parag. And you argue that foreignpolicy.com that even if Vladimir Putin had never invaded Ukraine, Russia was tilting towards the Asian system. And the Russian president increasingly seeks inspiration and support from both China and India. Parag Khanna joining us now from Switzerland. Good to see you. I'm not surprised that you've seen this tilt to the east. And in fact, emerging markets have been doing so. And we saw an acceleration during the global financial crisis where the global south, emerging markets teaming up together, trying to find ways to circumvent the use of the US dollar. You saw a new development bank coming to the fore, the BRICS nations, these alliances. And now this is an interesting time to take a step back from the urgency that we see on the ground in Ukraine to see what is happening in terms of global alliances. Are you seeing polarization that should be taken seriously?
It's a great question, and thank you so much for having me on, Eleni. Polarization is the kind of, we often believe that the world, or many people say the world is being bifurcated into two camps, East and West, democracies and authoritarian states. Let's look more at the individual behavior and characterize it more as just opportunism. Not polarization, not a new Iron Curtain, but opportunism. And that is how Asian states behave. They look for opportunities to take advantage of the situation, to acquire the resources that they need at a lower cost, if it means that even one of their allies or one of the states that they partner with, like Russia, is feeling a lot of heat, of course, and being isolated by the West. That means that they're not necessarily going to have to welcome it more, because as you rightly pointed out, they already have been. Putin had declared his pivot to the East, his Eastern policy, long before even the Obama administration did. So I think it's not a surprise that Putin finds, sort of friendly relationships.
Okay, let's also look at the realities right now. If China doesn't adhere to what the Europeans and the US is saying, this could, of course, hurt China because they have trillions of dollars worth of US treasuries. If they start selling, it's going to hurt them. It's also going to hurt the US. Does China really want to unseat the United States, for example, and create this sort of, dual alliance in the world where you've got a clear, cut between what we see in the East and West?
Well, China, again, is seeking mostly to maximize the leverage that it has over Russia. And in fact, we saw that happen in 2014 when Russia invaded and took Crimea from Ukraine. At that point in time, Russia had agreed, because of the sanctions imposed then, that it would start to build pipelines directly to China, which is exactly what China wanted. And now, not surprisingly, what we've seen in the aftermath of the invasion, again, of this war, is that Russia and China have agreed to accelerate the completion of gas pipelines and even the construction of new oil pipelines and greater oil purchases by China from Russia. And the same thing is happening with India. And with India, they're also talking about pricing it in rupees, for example. So these are examples of countries just taking advantage of the situation. And no doubt, because this is such a severe invasion, such a severe conflict that's taken place, so long as Putin is in power, it's really hard to imagine Western countries, such as Germany even, with the Nord Stream pipeline now being sort of shuttered, that they're going to embrace Russia again. And so really this time, it's a long-term and strategic shift into these deeper relations between Russia with Asian powers.
Okay, so what do you make of the public show of friendship with India and China? And what should we read into it? Because you made a really good point here. They're using currencies as a way to, circumvent the sanctions. And it's really been really interesting to see all these lines emerging as headlines over the past few weeks.
Yes, and so the currency is one area where, again, China has been making efforts for quite some time under the banner of its dual circulation policy to increase the settlement of trade in its currency, the RMB, and for other countries to hold the RMB more in reserve. Sino-Russian trade has reached nearly $100 billion, and Russia can actually use the RMB that it receives from the sale of oil in that currency to purchase the Chinese goods that it increasingly is going to be reliant on because of course, all of the export bans from Western countries into Russia. So this set of dynamics is basically just reinforcing the fact that Russia is going to have to import more and export more to countries in the broader Asian system, especially China and India.
You were a former senior advisor at the U.S. Department of Defense, and I wonder what your advice is at this point. These leaders have a lot of things in common, but it comes to the unsavory, of course, when it comes to authoritarianism or when it comes to human rights issues. Is this a global risk, would you say? Are you concerned?
Well, I still think that we have to take these countries one by one. Yes, they are all in the broader Asian geography. Yes, they are either authoritarian states like China and Russia, or increasingly illiberal democracies like India. They have their domestic unrest, and therefore there is some sort of you could call it strategic sympathy combined with the opportunism I was talking about earlier that is animating these relations. And as you mentioned at the top, they have been working to build institutions like the New Development Bank, the BRICS Bank, the BRICS sort of coalition, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well, which is nearly 2 decades old, to serve as a forum for their relationships. And as Sergei Lavrov had said directly during his conversation with Prime Minister Modi, he praises these countries for seeing their relationship as a totality and not holding the relationship hostage to Ukraine. For a country like India, quite frankly, not only given its own domestic priorities in terms of pacifying Kashmir and so forth, but also because it pays a very high price to import oil. And if it can take advantage of this situation to get that cheaper, to avoid having an inflated current account deficit, it's simply going to do those things.
All right, Parag Khanna, thank you very much. Really fascinating. Good to have you on the show. And coming up,